Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there. Welcome to episode 1 of season 3 of the Blood Brothers podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain. Before I introduce today's esteemed guest, I'm going to remind all the avid podcast listeners that you can find this show on all the major audio platforms. And if you're viewing this podcast via YouTube, do not be cheeky, click subscribe and leave a comment and like this video. To kick off season 3, I have someone who truly requires no introduction. His accolades are many. He is a pioneering and leading Islamic thinker from the Western world of the 20th century. He is a former professor at the University of Oxfordshire. He is an author, a lecturer, an activist, a thinker, to name but a few. And that is none other than Sheikh Tariq Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for hosting us in Paris.
Alhamdulillah.
Because we have nowhere else to host. It has to be in France, right?
Yes. I can't move from here for the time being.
How are you? You look well.
Alhamdulillah, much better. The situation was quite difficult. My health in jail was deteriorating because of my MS. So, but now I'm working on it, and alhamdulillah, it's much better.
Alhamdulillah. So you've been out now. It's approaching 5 years.
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. And do you have a different perspective on freedom, even though this is not really free, it's a restricted freedom, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I have. To tell you the truth, you know what? Just before entering jail, I had a project of writing a book, which was a manifesto for an Islamic theology of liberation. So it was all about, the social movement in which we have to look at the future, because I was, and I still is, quite disappointed with the Islamic movement and what is happening, and the way we are looking at the priorities when we want to change a society and to make it better. And while I was in jail, the whole thing changed. So this manifesto for an Islamic theology of liberation, the first part of it, I'm still working on it. I have quite difficulty to write these days, but inshallah it will come back. The first is really about the spiritual liberation. It's what is missing at the end. If you think about why I'm disappointed with the Islamic movements, it's mainly because I think the spiritual side of it is quite weak. And I have to understand what is the very meaning of spiritual liberation. So yes, today I'm quite restricted physically and sometimes intellectually, because it's quite difficult to put ideas together. But spiritually, it's much better. Liberation, it's a state that I'm now, find more closely to what I have experienced before.
So what I'm guessing from this is you can be liberated but restricted. You can be liberated from restriction.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take you back to 2017. Let's talk about what began as rumors, what began as accusations, the cases, the rape cases, and then the sexual abuse cases that were levied against you. The main one was from an individual. She was a lady called subhanAllah, Handa Ayari. In October 2017, she publicized accusations towards you, which you then obviously countered, and you done a counter slander claim, and that's where it kind of all started, right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of snowballed into something much greater, much bigger, with very, very powerful entities involved. What's your thoughts on this claimant specifically, who's an ardent secular liberal feminist who has her own very problematic views and attitudes towards Islam and Muslims? What were your initial feelings when that became public?
First, I thought, it was in the wake of Me Too at the very beginning of the whole thing. And I knew that she had a book coming and she was trying to get some publicity. Now, at the same time, I knew her from before. So 1 week later came a second plaintiff, and then it was a movement, so to speak. What was my first reaction, to tell you the truth, which was,
When you first heard the news,
yeah,
almost posted something. Actually, did you know that when her book came out, she claimed that she referred to you, but not under your name. She was an alias.
yes,
Zubair.
Yeah.
Did you know that Zubair?
I heard about it, but I didn't want to read the book, and I didn't go to read the book, and I was not involved in this at all. I was because I met her only once, and this was 5 years before.
Yeah.
So the point for me, the first reaction on my personal for my personal life was to think about protecting myself, which is the first moral, natural reaction. And then I said, no, nothing happened. And I knew her. I said, I know her, but I didn't want to be involved. And when I started talking to my lawyer, I said, just say that nothing happened. And at the same time, he helped me to say this because it was protecting me and protecting my life. And when we started talking about the whole thing and getting some information and some connections, we understood, and this I didn't know. She was involved and had connections 6 months before the complaint with one of the well-known opponent of all what I'm doing in France. It's Caroline Forest.
Yeah.
So they were in touch, and with the second one even. So all of a sudden I understood that this was set up. There was something happening. I didn't know at that time what we heard just a few months ago about the involvement of the United Arab Emirates and they had a meeting in August 2017. So this was just
2 months exactly. Yeah.
So saying we are going to take down Tariq Ramadan, and they were talking to a company based in Geneva called Alp Services. All this now, it's known. The New Yorkers published something about it. My first reaction was to think about, okay, protect yourself. So as you know, and this is also something that I was dealing with within the Muslim communities, the moral side of the equation and the legal side. As to the moral side, I was just trying to protect myself and knowing what I did and what happened. And this was something which was, I got it as something which up to now, I'm thanking Allah to make me go, or to make me go through this experience, because it was just calling me back, come back. Now it's time for you to know what you are doing with your life. And when I was in jail for 10 months, I was just thanking him. If I had to pass away with this, it means that what I'm experiencing now is something which has to do with Tawbah, which the relationship I had with Tawbah within and during 10 months in jail is even with the Quran. I understood that I was going to get out through a verse of Surah At-Tawbah that I read when I opened the Quran with the chaplain in the Quran. I was on one verse, and then as I was reading the Quran every day, I read it I don't know how many times, 12 times. The verse I ended on when I was to go to court was the verse I had with him. I said, this is a sign that something is going to happen, and it happened. So this conversation with Allah during this is something which is helped me on the moral side. So I heard many brothers and sisters, even people who are very close to me, brothers, and even, some of the scholars were close to me, they disappeared. So sometimes you ask yourself, so what was it about? Is it brotherhood? Is this the very meaning of the message? Because if, there is something called in Europe and in the West cancel culture, we don't have such thing in Islam. There is no cancel culture. In Islam, there is something called cover culture. Cover culture, I'm covering you to protect you. It doesn't mean I'm hiding. No, I want to help you to become a better human being.
Can I ask you something, Sheikh?
Yeah.
The husn abdan aspect of it, or covering your brother's private sins and stuff like this, has a normative basis in our tradition. There's no doubt about that. But what would your thoughts be on those critics who would say, well, that sounds like a convenient excuse to cover, to brush under the carpet spiritual abuse. You heard this term, spiritual abuse? So someone who has religious authority or a reputation as a Muslim public figure, yeah, it's all convenient when you want husn al-dhan, or when you want your private stuff covered, when you've actually abused your power or abused your authority or abused your title to get up to this stuff private. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. It's just I understand. But there is a great difference here, and this is a good question, because this is a fair point and an important discussion that we need to have. Because when you abuse your spiritual status, so to speak, say, it's as if you are saying, or I was saying, I'm at the level of what I'm saying, or I always said, you know what, all what I'm saying are ideals, are goals I want to achieve, I want to reach as much as you are.
Absolutely.
Yes. So now, if I was to use this against, or to use this, or to manipulate this against sisters, and this is not what happened in the whole case. If you look at the case, this is not what happened. I was not using my religious authority to do something with my religion. They had nothing to do with religion. They had nothing to do with asking for it. All this now, it's in the case, had nothing to do with this. So the point is to say to brothers and sisters, when you are at a certain level and you are exposed, and I kept on repeating, what if I fall? What if something happened to me? Are you going to be here? So it's just to remind you, anyone, even your scholar, you should not idealize anyone. But if he or she falls, you have to cover and to protect him or her as much as you are doing with your brothers and sisters, your ordinary Muslims. That's the point. You know, I heard things about some of my teachers in Egypt, my scholars who trained me. I knew things about them. I didn't go to expose and say, your knowledge had nothing to do with you. I cover, went, spoke, and helped my brother and sister, even my teacher, to become a better person. So I think that we need to get the very deep spiritual teaching in Islam here. There is no abuse of spiritual power. It's just to tell you, you know what? I wrote 20 or 35 books up to now. This is the 36th that you have to read. It's telling you, I'm not perfect. I have been struggling, but I'm much better now as to my spiritual state and my relationship to God that I was before. Yesterday you were praising me. Now you want to counsel me? Who are you to do that?
How soon did you realize that this is actually much more bigger than an individual claim of an opportunistic bookseller? When did you realize this is actually something a bit more bigger? Because at one point within 6 months, you and your lawyer were already talking about the involvement of the Interior Ministry, of Sarkozy, journalists. I've got the names of some of the journalists, Jean-Claude El-Fassi, Metamati, these people. Like they were in touch with the claimants, and you had state officials involved. And when did you realize that this is something much bigger than just one lady or two ladies making a claim?
No, I realized when, because it started, as you said, in October. I was put in jail in January, the end of January. In between, we started to look at all the relationships, and we understood that something was happening. So I understood. I had some brothers and sisters straight away say, okay, these are the Zionists and they are trying to target you. I say, look, be careful, it's bigger than this. Why? Because in 2016, you should remember something, which is the starting point of a story in France. You need to understand that in France, the situation is quite specific. In the way I was perceived as the most visible Muslim public figure in the country.
You describe yourself as the devil in France.
This is the way they were introducing me and say he has a double speech and he is the grandson of Hassan al-Banna, he's the brother of Hani Ramadan, and Hani Ramadan was banned from the country, etc. So the point is that at one point when there was a discussion about double loyalty and having, two passports and two nationalities, they said now you will have only one. And they were saying this for Algerian and French, Tunisian and French, Moroccan and French. Say, you know what? I'm Swiss, so I'm going to take the nationality. I'm going to be French and Swiss, and I want to know how are I going to deal with this. The first reaction by some journalists was to ask, are you going to run from presidency? Say, what's the point? What are you talking about? And then came to me someone from the French intelligence in May 2016, and he told me, we know what you are going to do. You are going to settle down in the country, run a center, and be involved in the social fabric, in the social dynamic. I say, that's not my plan. I'm in Oxford. I don't want to. I say, we know what you are doing. And you have every 2 months meetings with the imams, and which was true. I was training and I was dealing with, but at the same time, I didn't want to settle. I didn't want to come to France. But in their mind,
would there be a problem if you did want to do that?
For them, yes. Because there was something which was really in France, the voice was heard, and not only by Muslims, by the way. It was always, and also it was reaching out to other activists and intellectuals. So the point was to destroy this voice. And I knew this. I knew, and I said it from the beginning. I know who I am bothering, and I know that I'm bothering, and I know who. And it's not only in France, it's internationally, because as you know that I was banned. I was banned by 9 Muslim majority countries, and Mauritania, Libya, Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. I was unable to go to these countries.
Before the Arab Spring?
Yes, before. And after. I did Tunisia before and then after. So that was, I knew that, and I was known for this. I'm not going to keep quiet. I had not my grandfather being killed, rahimahullah, and my father being in exile, just to come to Switzerland and to make money and to keep quiet. It's not me. It will never be my message.
See, some of your critics, Muslim critics, would say, well, hold on, Tariq is a modernist. He's an assimilationist. He's always talking about forget the Sharia, forget the literalist understanding. Us Muslims, we need to integrate in Europe, religious plurality. So why does he pose such a threat? His version of Islam is not actually threatening. Some of your Muslim critics will say this. They'll say this is someone who isn't your standard kind of like Islamist activist, doesn't look it, doesn't speak it. He's not calling for a caliphate. He's not calling for jihad. He's not calling for the removal of regimes. What does this man pose? What kind of threat does he pose?
That's funny, because you put it the right way. It's exactly what was happening with some of my brothers and sisters within the Muslim community. And I used to respond to these people and say, you know what? The West is, and the Western intellectuals are reading me much deeper than you, because you don't read. You just are going out of, rumors and superficially, you don't know what I'm writing. And you don't know what I'm calling for. So by saying, for example, my main point was always, I'm not a literalist, but I respect the literalists. Why? Because I need them. If, for example, I'm dealing with a specific social issue, and I might be tempted by going too far in accepting the state of affairs and forgetting the text, the literalists are coming and say, no, there is a hadith. I need you.
So they keep on check.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm sorry. If you are telling me that in order to be faithful to Islam, I have to read the Quran the way you read it, not understanding the very meaning of words and the semantic, and not understanding that from the very beginning, the Prophet, peace be upon him, والسلام, was knowing the context and asking Mu'az ibn Jabal when he was sending him in Yemen just to take into account the context. He was doing this at his time. You don't want to do it now, so it means that the problem is with you. It's not with me. So I'm saying the faithfulness to Islam. It's not about reading the text literally. Is to understand. Is to be faithful to the meaning of the objectives. And in the West, the way I was critical towards the West was saying, first, we are Muslims who are going to remain Muslim because you want Islam. And you want Muslims without Islam. That's not going to work. First, to be faithful. So if I was asking the brother, saying, what is the threat with Tariq? There is no threat. He is completely, westernized. So
because this is one of the biggest criticism against your fellow from your fellow Muslim brothers.
Yes, but I want to ask them, could you tell me on which fundamental principle or fundamental limits I have betrayed the message? Tell me where you can find something that I said, this is not Islamic. Al-halal halal wal-haram haram. There is no discussion. العبادات العقيدة والعبادات, we're not going to touch them. But الأصل في الأشياء الإباحة في المعاملات. So it's permission. So you have to be creative. I'm dealing with some of the Muslims who are repeating and say, I'm coming from a family where everything was about التجديد, it's the renewal. And you have to understand the context, remain faithful to the principles and get a sense of the context. So I got, and these people who, the legacy I got was shuyukh and brothers and sisters. When I went back with, one-to-one courses with my shuyukh, it was all about, the fundamentals are not touchable. Okay, but now the context.
So there is a parameter we have to work within.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is that some of the people who are following the mujaddideen are muqallidu al-mujaddideen. So they repeat exactly the same methodology. They say, okay, look, you are not going to repeat what was said in the 40s. Now, you are a Westerner. What is your added value in this country? If you don't put something, you're just coming from Egypt, coming from Tunisia, coming from Morocco and repeating. While even in Morocco, they are moving faster than you because you are muqallid those people. So that's the problem.
So not to stay on this point, but it is relevant because we're talking about how the French state perceived you. And you said that they are looking into me and reading into me deeper than you. So what is it that you posited and represented that made you more threatening than someone who was calling for a united Muslim world under a caliphate rules of Sharia, jihad fi sabilillah against the Tawaghit? What made you so much of a bigger threat than these various groups?
I'm going to respond by one sentence.
By the guys who are fighting, they're in prison, they've lost their lives, their mashayikh are in prison for decades. Their activists are censored here, their events are cancelled. What threat does Tariq Ramadan pose? That is bigger than
one sentence will be my answer, and it's coming from one French journalist. They say, the issue with Tariq Ramadan is not he doesn't want the Muslim to be integrated. He wants to integrate us within the Islamic frame. I say, yes, brother, that's exactly it. I want to integrate what is good in your society in my frame. And the principles are not going to change, but everything which is good in this society is mine. Now, what is not good, I'm here to be an added value to reform and to come with something which is al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. So to promote, say, oh, this is dangerous. Because I'm not going to say I'm not respecting the law. I'm going to respect the law, to abide by the law, the country and the land. That's not a problem with me. Now, if you are asking me to be less Muslim, to be more French or more Swiss or more Europeans or more Western, it's not going to happen. My point is not, this is one. Second, I'm not going to keep quiet. As any citizen in this country, I'm going to be critical towards your policy. Mm-hmm. Because democracy is about me being free. So you are not going to talk on my behalf. I'm going to talk. So this is dangerous because it's a call for autonomy. Be a Muslim, be autonomous. Third, where do you come from? Do you come from Africa? Do you come from Asia? Do you come from which country? I'm coming from Egypt. I'm not in the West. Keep quiet about what is happening there. I will never keep quiet about Palestine. But not only about Palestine. I'm on the side of the victims. So when what happened to Mandela, I was on his side. I was demonstrating in Geneva with the people supporting Mandela when he was in jail. I was with the people demonstrating in Geneva for the Tibetans, as I am for the Rohingyas. I am on the side of the victims. So you are not going to get me in something which is a closed, mindset, which is, I support the Muslims, only the Muslim. I support human beings, because this is what Islam is telling me. So if you look at this, and knowing that when you talk like this, you have people following, listening, understanding that it's quite powerful, that you are not coming with a minority mindset. You are coming with a universal perception, a universal take. We are here to be an added value, to improve the state of the world, not to find our small space where we are not going to be visible, because what they want is invisible Muslims. And I want to make the Muslims visible, not through the way they dress, but the way they behave.
Why did you tell some of your followers and supporters to calm down a bit when they all said there was a Zionist agenda against you? Which is something very common Muslims do, by the way.
Yeah.
And in many cases, it would be true, but in other cases, it's like, well, there's no evidence to suggest there is the Israeli lobby. I just find that sometimes Muslims very quickly blame everything on the Zionist lobby. They're not wrong all the time, but
I think that you are getting the point. It's exactly this. It's too quick and too superficial. To know that they are involved and they wanted me to fall, and they wanted me just to be removed. They said it to me, of course. Even some journalists. One of them, who is a well-known journalist in France, told me, "Tariq, stop talking about Palestine and Israel, and everything will be fine." And if you look at my case, the lawyers, why all the complainants are not paying the lawyers?
yeah,
Who is paying for that?
absolutely.
Okay, so this is one. Second, even the psychiatrist who is checking and reporting on the case has one leg in Paris and the other one in Tel Aviv, and working in an organization, Shibboleth, where 16 of the members wrote against me. So there is an involvement, and there are people, and even El Fassi that you are talking, he's not only a French-Israeli citizen. That's not the point, because I don't have the, you will never get me on anti-Semitism. I said anti-Semitism is anti-Islamic, period. Now, as much as I'm criticizing Saudi Arabia without being Islamophobe, I can critique or be critical towards any country. The point is that I'm critical towards Israel and its policy, and I will remain.
But that's synonymous to anti-Semitism now.
So, sorry? That's exactly, yeah.
Anti-Zionism is now synonymous.
This is what they want, and this is what we have to resist. But the point is that to say that somewhere involved is a point. Now, it's not only this, that there are people in the French, and even in the French government, who are not even supporting Israel, but they are laïque or secular, and they saw me, and they are still seeing me as the enemy. So that's fine. And some feminists and some lobby, which, homosexuals are thinking that by the only fact that you are a religious voice, you are against homophobia and whatever. So we had different, in the book I wrote what I believe, I put 6 different fronts where I had enemy. So the point to say Zionists were involved, of course, but what we heard, we were talking about UAE.
Yes.
So these people...
Your book, your 36th book, you're talking about Devoir de Vérité. The book. Sorry if I pronounced it.
Devoir de Vérité is now a duty of truth. It's translated but not published in English. But yes, this is the 36th. This is the last one I wrote. In fact, I wrote 3 other books afterward. But this is the first one I wrote just after being released from jail. It's about the case. But what I was talking before about the new book I wrote is the book of my life, saying to the people, be careful, read my books, but read my life. Because in my life, in what is happening to me, for scholars as much as for ordinary Muslims, there are a great deal of teachings that you have to get. Because I really think that I want to say to some of my brothers and sisters, just be cautious. Don't make your moral judgment a way of dealing or negotiating a power relationship. Your morality, it's a way. It's a gift to help someone to become better and to blossom. not for you to judge. That's none of your business. The only one who is going to judge me is Allah, and the only one I am expecting from her this forgiveness, this deep forgiveness, it's my wife first and my children. And alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. You know,
Did they
through
did they forgive you very quickly? Did it take time?
it took time, but very quickly they were very supportive, and it took time because they know who I am.
And your dear wife released a video even.
Yes, and it was very difficult for her. Everything was difficult. But if I was the devil, if I was so bad, as some of my brothers now don't even, they are saying my name. So who are you? What is this? So you were inviting me when I was a great name, and when I am a better person, you are forgetting me. So is this Islam? Is this? And there is something which is this kind of integration to the Western pattern, which is you think that the cancel culture is to expose someone and to destroy. I'm sorry. Islam is resisting this. I will never do this to any of my brother or my sister. This is not us. It cannot be. So as you said, as-sitr, husn al-dhan, all this is important. But at the same time, we need to get this deep spiritual teaching about, I heard many brothers and sisters in the past who were not close to the community say, I have a problem with my sisters and my brothers because they are very judgmental and very quick on superficial things to say that you are good or bad. And I think that through my experience, I understood that they were true.
I mean, I don't mean to digress, but alhamdulillah, we have time. So advise me, Sheikh, on this matter that we run a Muslim news website, right? We've been around for 10 years. And there are some stories that come to us. Let's say, as an example, we had a very recent one where an imam, a young imam, he gives marital advice, he gives marriage counseling and stuff like this. He was caught having a private, inappropriate communication with a sister. And those videos got leaked, messages got leaked. We were contacted, 5 Pillars were contacted, said, look, this is someone who is in a position of having access to our sisters. He advises them on marriage and counseling and stuff, and here he's getting up to hanky-panky in his private time. Where is I want your thoughts. Advise me. What is the process here? Because one would argue this is a private matter between him, Allah, and the other person he's doing this with. The other camp will say, well, no, this is someone who has access to our daughters. He has access to the women of this community, and he advises them on marriage and stuff and how to be better wives. And so no, because he has to be exposed because we don't know the extent of what he's getting up to. Where do we draw the line between covering your brother's private sins and having husn al-dhan for him, or even saying, you know what, he had an episode or episodes, he had phases. May Allah forgive him, this was something that's private. And where do you draw the line between, but he's a public figure, so therefore he has attained these relationships and these situations because he is who he is.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
I think it's a good question, and it's a good point that and something that we have to discuss within the community, because husn al-dhan are a sit, which is to cover your brothers and sisters' sin. Doesn't mean to hide and doesn't mean to remain silent. But there is a way of doing it. And the way of doing it is, and you have to differentiate, because once again, I will tell you about my story, but I want to respond first to what you are asking here. When there is something like this happening and you know that he is exposed or he is doing things that are not right. Exposed meaning he is vulnerable, because he is doing things that are against his own morality or the morality that he is preaching.
Right.
There is one or two close to him who should know and go to talk to him.
To advise him.
Say, look, now enough, it's enough. We heard about this. So first we have one question. Is it true? And it's between you and us and Allah. Allah is here with us and He's listening. So just we want a sincere discussion. We heard about this. So if tabayyanu means you have to check. So this is the first question. The second is if it is he's denying, say, look, we are carrying on and we will check. But if you are denying if it's true, we have to take action. So it could be to prevent you from talking, or if you carry on talking, to expose you. So there are steps. But first, to come to his own awareness first. Second, his own responsibility. And third, if he denies and if he is not ready to listen, you expose him when there is no other solution. So this is something which is the way sitr is to be understood. It's not, oh, I haven't seen, I'm not going to talk. It's his private life. My private life. It's my private life. As long as you know about my private life, that the way I'm dealing with it is destroying my spiritual state. So it's your own concern. So you have to do something. Brotherhood. Brotherhood is about this. Brotherhood is not a passive presence. It's an active presence. So this is what إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَصْلِحُوا means it's active. You have to be active in your brotherhood. So if I see that, yes, you are on your own, but I can feel that privately you are weak or vulnerable, and you can even act against your own principles, I'm going to do something. Because my heart is between your heart and your own awareness. So I'm going to help you. So, and if it is someone who is a public figure, it's very important to do this. It's not because it's high that you don't have to deal with him as an ordinary brother or an ordinary sister. To tell you my situation, for example.
Did anyone come to you? Sorry? Did anyone come to you or approach you?
So the problem is that first it was not within the community. All these women have nothing to do with the movement. So it never, some were saying, oh, he was a sexual predator. He was giving his phone number to sisters. It never happened. All this, it's not in the case. It never happened. So I want this to be clear. So it's not within the community.
Who was the new Muslim? There was one of the claimants. It was described as
she said she converted to Islam, and we went, and there is nothing about this. That she said that I even married her on Skype, and all this are lies. And then I sent even emails. She at the end acknowledged the fact that she created email addresses with my name and created
an exchange. So is this one of the cases that were dropped, right? Or is this...
No. This is the one. This is the second one. Is the second one. She said she converted to Islam. She wore the headscarf, and all this. Now we know that these were lies. So the point is, it was not within the community. But to tell you the truth,
But then,
let me.
They will ring you and say, Sheikh, we're hearing things. Is this true? They don't ring you and check in with you, like from the Muslim brothers, from the community of scholars and du'at, and they don't ring you and say, Sheikh Tariq, is this true, what we're hearing? Did they follow a process? I know the claimants are not from the community, I get that. This is not like a father coming and saying, my daughter goes to this sheikh for counselling. This is different, I get that. The claimants are nothing to do with the community. If anything, they're anti-community. But did you have anyone pick up the phone to you to see if you're okay? Are these things true?
No, they were asking when it happened about the rape and things like this, and is, I said, no, this is not true. Yes, I had, to tell you the truth, I got 2 phone calls asking me about the case, what the cases at the beginning. So I said, no, this is not true. They didn't go as far as to ask me about the reality of the relationships, and to tell you the truth, if they would, I would have just say, no, there is nothing, because this was my state at the beginning. I didn't want to be exposed with this. Now, the point for me in this situation was that I got brothers coming to me after the revelation of the 2 cases, and we were trying to protect me from what was happening on the legal side. as to the moral side, I think I had no discussion with any brother on the moral side. I was coming to advise even on this. It never happened.
Did you want it?
That's a good point. Why? Let me tell you something. Because when I was in jail, I was thinking, look, it's really weird what is happening. I had some brothers and sisters calling me. You know, the life I had before jail?
Yes.
It was crazy. 5 times just flying, taking,
Yes.
flying from the States to Europe, to the Asian countries and to the African countries. It was a crazy life. And to explain...
Very busy man.
No, to explain is not to justify. To explain that you are traveling, you are on your own, half of the time very tired, writing and teaching, and this was my life. Was I vulnerable sometimes? Yes. Did I have a brother or a sister telling me, Tariq, we need to have a talk? I got one sister, I will never forget this, who said it to me because she heard about my sickness, the MS. But as my spiritual state and things, the only one who sometimes was telling me you have to calm down is my wife. But as to what I was experiencing, no one asked about my spiritual state. No one asked about the real life. It's just, we are happy you come and you give the lecture and Salamu Alaikum, see you next year. So this was the life. So I am explaining here, I'm not justifying that you can be morally vulnerable, because you are the first responsible for yourself. And I am and I was. But looking at it now from where I am, say, brotherhood is about this. I would have needed someone to tell me, Tariq, you have to think about what is going through here and your life. Now, alhamdulillah, what did not come from brothers and sisters came from Allah. Alhamdulillah. This was the teaching. When I was in jail, this is the time where, for the first time in my life, I was very close to my mother and to my father, rahimahullah. My father was with me every day. I was just thinking, and I remembered that, when before he passed away, I was writing an article, and in the article it was about Egypt, and one judge who was put in jail, and he said to the people, you want to give up, you want to destroy us. If you want to destroy us, I have one advice: find a jail where there is no God. That's it.
Doesn't exist.
And my father smiled and said, that's it, that's the point. And then when I was in jail, I was thinking about all this and say, Allah, subhanallah, thank you. Thank you for what I am experiencing, because this is to save me before my own death from everything. So to help me to come back and to myself and to go through this experience. So that's something which is the ordeal, the test is at the end. You understand. I will tell you something. I was in jail, and they moved me to the hospital within the jail, and there was a Tunisian doctor. He came to me, looked at around if there was,
and I'm watching it.
Yes, and he talked to me in Arabic and said, Tara, remember and dua. Subhanallah, la ilaha illa ant, inni kuntu min al-dhalim. Dua qulubin min al-dhunnun. So Yunus, don't forget to repeat it. And he left. So I had to come here to get a doctor in jail.
Tell you why
doing da'wah and say, this is subhanallah, and he helped me a lot. And just one verse, and the chaplain coming to يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم والله ويبقى الله and يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. So this verse that I this was the last verse I wrote before getting out from jail, that I read with the chaplain. These are 2 or 3 stories understanding that there is communication through the Quran with Allah, telling you and this is the way I understood it. I still love you. Alhamdulillah.
Was it a legal strategy for you to first deny any relationships or any acknowledgement to then acknowledge it afterwards?
So for me at the beginning,
Because some of your critics said you lied under oath.
no, this never happened, and in France it's not the same as in the UK or in the States. What happened in the beginning, my first natural attitude was to say no, and I went to see a lawyer, and the lawyer told me, don't acknowledge anything, say no, nothing happened, for two reasons. First, for yourself, he understood my situation because he was coming from Morocco, understanding that, the damage that could happen. And then he told me, with this, you are going to push her to come with things and to prove, because she has to prove, you don't, because you are accused. And at the beginning, I didn't really understand this. And I read, when I was in jail, I read the book written by the current Minister of Justice, Dupond-Moretti, who said this exactly. Said, you can lie as a strategy, a defense strategy, to get some information from the other side.
What was he talking in reference to?
Sorry?
Did he reference your case?
No, he referenced my case in another by saying Tariq Ramadan has the right for a presumption of innocence, but he was talking about the case that he was dealing with in France, saying that in France, at this stage, you have the right not to say the truth as a defense strategy, and it's not under oath. And it's exactly what happened, subhanAllah. It happened that because I said no, they came with a computer and a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And we found in the mobile phone everything which was proving that, in fact, she was lying. Messages, even wrong email addresses, and connections with Caroline Forest. And we find all this. So out of this, I was able to say, look, she herself is now proving that she is lying. She even changed a picture, and we got this on her.
She photoshopped it. She photoshopped a file.
She did it herself because she is a computer expert, and she changed it, and we find this on the computer. Say, look, what is this? And at the end, and even the messages she had with one witness, all this is in the case now, and it's helping me a great deal. Without this, it would have been more difficult for me to prove that this was all set up.
What baffles me, and will baffle many who followed this case closely, is that there is evidence in abundance to show that there was consistent communication between the claimants and journalists. One could argue, a fair-minded person can argue, that there's an element of grooming the claimants by the journalists to get the story, right? Why was this something not acknowledged by the judges, and about the deep relationship between the claimants and the journalists, and the claimants with other claimants?
The point is that the judges, the two, are very much in a mission. It's to destroy me. They don't care about the manifestation of truth. Even, for example, recently we got the final report on the accusations. The journalist got it before my lawyers, meaning that the judges are sending it to journalists before sending it to lawyers. And this is the way it has been for the last 5 years. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. But even, for example, when the first Henda Ayari you were talking about, she said, I don't remember the date. I don't remember the place.
Yeah.
And my lawyer said, so you don't remember who was with you, maybe?
Yes.
So the judges saying to her, why don't you say, I don't know, that's enough. And then she said, I don't know, and that's enough. But she doesn't know the date. And she knew where I was. 2 weeks we were in touch. And my lawyer is asking, who told you about where Tariq Ramadan was? Because this is confidential information. She was unable to say. So the fact that all this is coming, that Caroline Forest was not really asked about her connection, that even my lawyer was asking, look, we want the details of all the communications between Caroline Forrest and the first and the second plan.
For our viewers and listeners who maybe didn't necessarily follow the case, who is Caroline?
Caroline Forrest is a well-known Islamophobe and I was the main target. She wrote a book about me called Brother Tariq.
Brother Tariq?
Yes, this is the name of the book. This was written in 2004. And Frère Tariq. And she is promoting feminism, homosexuality, because she's a lesbian and she thinks that by being a Muslim you are against, and criticizing anyone who is criticizing Israel. And she went with Shalgumi, who is the Imam of the Republic, and they went to Tel Aviv, and she's coming from an Egyptian family herself. So she's known as being the one who is targeting me all the time. And she was in touch with the first, with the second, and the first, and then with the judges, and then with the Swiss, even with the Swiss. And we won in Switzerland, and it was exposed that, and even the judges acknowledged the fact that she was involved and they were working together to put me down. So this is said by the Swiss judges, that there was a plan to take Tariq Ramadan down, and they said it and they wrote it, and the Swiss judges acknowledged this and acquitted me.
And that was just literally this May, wasn't it?
This was last year.
This May. So Sheikh, let me just ask you, just to kind of wrap up the cases, because
yeah.
In total, how many cases were there? Legal cases of sexual abuse and rape against you. In total, how many complaints or cases? Was it 6?
So
if you include Switzerland as well,
yes,
there were 6 in total.
It was 6 in total.
Okay,
yes.
so on June the 12th, 2018, one charge was dropped. That was the Munir Rabouj.
Rabouj.
Yes. Yeah, Rabouj. So that case was dropped.
No. She, because this is quite interesting. She wanted to remove her complaint, and she came back with the same lawyer who was supporting the second one. And she said, even she wrote to her brother by saying they gave me money.
For what?
To me, against me. So this is the complaint. She said, you have to understand that what we have in the case is crazy. The son of Ndayari said, why did you send an innocent in jail? For money. You told me it was for money because you wanted the future to be full of money. This is what you told me. So the son was to say this to her mother, to his mother. So the first one. The second one is still there. The third one, Munia Rabouj, was there, wanted to leave, and came back with the support.
So he's back.
She's back, yes. And this is one of the 3 that in the and there were 2 in
Switzerland.
In France. The first one wanted to cancel and to remove and to leave the whole thing. They brought her. And the 5th one, they said there is nothing. So
what about the indictment which involved 4 Swiss women? Was there one where involved 4 Swiss women?
No, there was not. This was a discussion about schools. But there's the report. No, the school, the secondary school, and I as a teacher in the secondary school, and the report coming from the Swiss government. These were all rumors. Nothing is there. So this was nothing. This was coming to support the case in Switzerland.
When did you find out the likes of Sarkozy, the former president of France, was commenting and talking about your case, the Interior Ministry? Like, this is high level.
Yeah.
You think of former presidents and the Interior Ministry, right? You're talking like the Mukhabarat of the country, talking about this. Does that scare you?
No, because before this, I had a discussion in 2004 with Sarkozy. He was interim minister. I had a discussion with many. Some of them became president, and even Hollande and Manuel Valls. All these are people I knew, and I discussed and had discussion with them. So, to tell you the truth, I never thought that Sarkozy was involved. And I got information from someone who was working in Sarkozy's cabinet that he needed me more than he wanted me to be destroyed, because I was the figure against whom he can just show that he is doing something for France. But it came from another side, someone who is very close to Caroline Forest, just Manuel Val.
Her name keeps coming up.
Who?
Caroline's.
Always. She is there in the whole fight. She is there. She's connected to all the plaintiffs. So she was in touch with the former Prime Minister Valls. She is very close today to the president's wife, Brigitte Macron.
Okay.
So she's close to the government, and she's working. She's protected at a very high level. And now I knew, and I know that I'm the target of people within the government, the French government. So the relationship between, the two powers, the executive and the legal, it's fluid. It's really that there are connections and they are working, and there is a way for them to keep me in this situation, thinking that I would be unable to be influential again. And this is what they are trying to do, is not only to destroy my reputation, but destroy me.
Do you feel like the engagements that you did have with senior French politicians that went on to become senior ministers or presidents, that engagement was pointless, it bore no fruit for you? It came to no aid? Obviously, we know that aid and assistance from Allah alone. We know this. But in terms of you hope that if you had cordial relationships with politicians, that it may help you at a later time. So someone would say to you, well, Sheikh Tariq, what was the point of this conversation with Sarkozy and with Hollande and these people? Did that help you?
It's a fair point, because at the end, why was I trying to discuss with these people? It was not to be in touch and to hope for help through or by them. It was really to get something which was a message sent to the French people at large, but also the Muslims and the French Muslims, by saying, look, now we are in this society, we are at home, and this is what I was even repeating in the States. You are American. I entered within the American landscape through the African American. So, my father was close to Malcolm X and Malik Shabazz, and this is, I never had this discussion about are we within or outside and our integration. That's home now, full point, and this is what we have. Now with these politicians...
Because it's a very important point. The issue is not necessarily I am British, I am French, I am American. The issue is when those terms are defined. For example, in Britain, fundamental British values means the following: belief in democracy, individual liberty, mutual tolerance, and rule of law. That is how the British government currently defines fundamental British.
Do you have a problem with these principles?
No, I have a problem.
Do you have...
Me personally, I'd have a problem with their interpretation of those and their application of these issues.
Yeah, but with these principles.
In their asl, you'd have to go on to define, but not in the asl, not the crux of it. So my issue is that when we call a place our home, I can never say that I'm not British. It'd be absurd. But what that means to me is very different to what the government tells me what it is meant to me. Surely we should have autonomy in defining what this means. Because no one else gets to be dictated about what British means. No British Christian or British Sikh or British Hindu is told this is what being British means. But the Muslims are always told you have to believe in these. No other faith community is addressed like this. So I guess what the counterpoint I'm asking you is that there will always be that kind of struggle to reconcile, because we are regularly, especially post 9/11, post 7/7, post war on terror, we are dictated to about what kind of British Muslim we should be, what kind of French Muslim is palatable, acceptable.
I understand this.
Can I ever be a British Muslim on my terms? Is the question. Can I ever be can an Algerian brother be a French Muslim on his terms?
Yes, as long as you agree on what you just agreed on, which are the principles that are the common principles. We don't have a problem with this. Our problem is we are putting ourselves in a situation where we feel as a minority and we feel as dominated. And this intellectual autonomy, which is the very essence of true citizenship, is I'm going to give meanings to the concepts we are using together. I'm not going to let you do whatever you want, but to tell you the truth, when I was in Egypt studying, I was talking about Islam as a reference. I understood that the interpretation of the translation or the understanding of some of the key words were not the same with some of the people in the government. The way they were dealing with in a Muslim majority country. So why I understand this in Muslim majority country, and I put myself, because in the Muslim majority country, I feel at home. I'm an Egyptian at the end of the day. I'm going to struggle against you. But in Britain, they are putting the definition, so we have to accept. No, I'm sorry, no. And it starts with our own terminology. The problem with Muslims.
But you yourself are forever disproving the misapplication, the double standards, the inconsistency. In one of the court hearings, you told the judge yourself, if I am being treated the way I am because of the color of my skin and my faith.
Yeah.
True. So how can we now agree on the justice of the judiciary system?
No. The principle of justice doesn't mean the way they are using it. I'm calling, I always said our presence as Muslims is to reconcile, and it will help to reconcile these societies with their own principles, which are ours.
Yes.
The principles are ours. So the fact that you are treating me that way, that, for example, I'm asking the judges, please, for 1 minute, forget that I'm Tariq Ramadan.
Yes, you did say
I'm a Muslim.
Yes.
And then just judge based on facts and law and the legal system. And at the end, it worked. Meaning that and this is why I'm very disappointed by many brothers and sisters not understanding that my case has to do with Islamophobia. It's as if, it's a moral issue, we don't touch it. Please, if they are treating me like this, because they thought that I am representing you, Muslims, so you let them do this, meaning that they are checking, is he supported or not? How courageous are the Muslims? And I'm sorry to say, I taught many things. The only thing I failed to teach was courage. I was unable to teach courage, to say, wake up and get up and say what you have to say. Because this issue, why they are treating me like this? Because the high-profile figure they wanted to destroy is to send you a message.
The popular Muslim public figure that represents the people, we're going to throw the case and make an example of him.
Exactly. And what we are doing to him, we are able to do it to you. So we now are going to check your own courage. And if you are not ready for this intellectual courage, meaning first define your own concepts from within the Muslim. What Islam means? What prayers? What means resistance? What means jihad? Now you're ready now to say what means jihad by always saying at the same time, there is a spiritual side. There is an intimate side, but there is also something called social resistance. There is something called resistance to injustice. This is something that we have to say. Jihad it is. Don't let the people define your own words, because this means that you are doubly alienated. You don't know yourself and you talk about yourself through the way they are looking at you. So this is one. Second, when it comes to justice, when it comes to freedom, all what you said, the British principles, okay, that's fine. We don't have a problem with this. Our problem is not with the principle. It's the way you deal with them, the way you define them. And now we are part of the game. We're not going to let you do this, because we are at home and we are not a minority. We are even going to show you that the way we understand these principles are a majority understanding. Oh, you understand that his involvement is much more dangerous for the people who don't want to listen to Muslim voices in the West.
What would your thoughts be on those Muslims that say, look, we are living in the West, the climate of Islamophobia and the anti-immigration sentiment, right-wing populism is on the rise. Yani, just let us be in our enclaves with our halal shops, with our masajid, with our madrasas. Let us please just live in our communities, because everyone else lives in a bubble. The kuffar, they live in their own bubbles. The whites, they live in their own bubbles. Why can't we Muslims live in our own bubbles? We will mix with them when we go to university. We will mix with them when we go to the workplace. We will mix with them when we go to the universities. But let us just survive in our enclave. What's wrong with this? Why do you want to? Why do you want to keep?
Just refer to one verse. I say, okay, you think like this. I have just one verse. If you can give me the tafsir of كنت خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. Just فسر. Give me the comments. Give me the understanding of this. That you are the best community as much as you promote what is right, resist what is wrong, and you believe in God. So you have to promote what is right in your stores and your halal restaurants and shops. This is what you want? No. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. Trust is not only among you. Yeah, you and nas. So we are here to it's a good tiding to people, not only to Muslims. And if you do this, you are acting against the very essence of the Islamic message. You are not here to remain in closed settings and within your own community.
Do you believe that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to be khayra ummatin nas, or I mean to be the best nation be raised from amongst mankind, it is conditioned on enjoining good and forbidding evil?
Of course.
That without that, you can't be the best nation raised from.
Of course, and this is why I'm saying, don't do with yourself what you are criticizing the Jews to have done with their own elected people. We don't have this. You are not elected because of your blood and your religion. You are elected because of your actions and the fact that you are commending the right and resisting the wrong. So this is why I am putting between brackets, in as much as this is conditional. And if you don't do this, it's conditional with the visible side of your faith. This is why وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ is coming at the end of the
and they believe in Allah.
Exactly. And so the belief is just, you are doing this because you believe. So you are doing this for the sake of Allah. But the people are seeing in your presence the fact that you are promoting the good. So I'm sorry, if you come to Britain, leaving Bangladesh, leaving Egypt, leaving Syria, leaving African countries to come and to be invisible and sitting and just want to have your money and your... I'm sorry, this is... What are you going to say the day of judgment to the people who are the poor people and the people under dictatorships in the southern countries, or the people who are in jail in the UK or in jail in the States who are innocent? What are you going to say to Allah? I didn't know. No, I'm sorry, you know. And if you know, you have to do.
Did you feel that more? Did you feel that more people should have come out in your defense? I mean, there was a petition which received, at the time, it received 24,000. I checked it yesterday, it's on 191,000. It was a change.org petition, letting your support.
Yeah.
At the time, since 2018, it received 24,000 signatures. It's currently only 200,000. Yeah. There was a statement from a group of ulama. Yeah, I think about 140, 180. Did you wish there was more?
I was not expecting this. I would have, you know, at the beginning, it was a very strong movement. And then when they heard that I acknowledged that something happened, they stopped and they went from the legal side to forgetting about the rape and say, oh, it's a moral issue, and even listening to some of our sisters. And I understand that, I was supporting many sisters saying you have to struggle for your rights. And you have to struggle for being respected in this community. But there are some of our sisters that are going too far with the Me Too movement, saying, oh, we are going to expose the scholars, and they are all there. Say, okay, look, be careful with this, because there is a game here that the West is going to push you and to push us towards a direction which is not the one. As I said, we are not for hiding. We are not for being silent or remaining silent. We have to try to do the best to help the people to become better. To expose could destroy, and we're not here to destroy. It's not the final and the last judgment that you have. This is the only judgment is coming from Allah. The only thing that you have to do is to help your brother and your sister, whoever he or she is, at the high profile or ordinary Muslim, you have to help. So I would say here that I was not expecting, I was surprised by, I lost the useless and I kept the useful. But I lost the useless, meaning that there were some scholars that who were, I was expecting from them at least just call me, ask me, say something. They disappeared. While yesterday it was very sport, and I had some I was not expecting them to be and to remain, and they were very close. Some of them even I haven't seen really when they were around me, and they came to me and say, I have been with you for the last 10 years. I'm still here. So I learned a lot through this experience, and I don't understand, why and how some scholars and some leaders and some Muslims are not understanding the very essence of what is happening. So the West and the people who are our enemies are winning the case if you really think that what is happening to one of your brothers is only a moral issue.
So who is our enemies?
The enemies, we have many, but
can the West ever be a home for us if there's so many enemies in such powerful places?
But it's even worse in Muslim majority countries. I'm sorry,
but
that's really. We were talking about UAE. You can put Saudi Arabia, the center, is paying with UAE companies to destroy Muslim leaders in the West.
Look, Sheikh, in any of the 47 plus Muslim majority countries, there is dictatorial tyranny of various versions and extents. Nearly all the Muslim majority leaders and governments in some shape or form are serving the greater interests of the 5 permanent UN security members, even if it be Russia, China, America, wherever it may be. But in the Muslim world, things will be different. Yani, if you keep yourself to yourself, practice your deen, and you may have to give da'wah privately, you may have to do Islamic activism privately, but there isn't this, it's different in the sense that it's still home. Many would argue.
I think you are not assessing the right way.
I'm positing the counter.
The very impact of media and social media in you know that there is Islamophobia in Muslim majority countries.
Of course there is. UAE being one of the pioneering countries, not the only.
But within the Muslim communities as well.
Look, my parents are from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
The Bangladeshi government has institutional Islamophobia as well.
Exactly.
In the way they last caricature of the Prophet.
What is the difference? Tell me.
The difference is that there is that some would argue that when you're in...
Meaning you.
Some would argue that things are a bit more different in the Muslim world because the climate is cosmetically Muslim. It's cosmetically Muslim.
Yeah.
To some extent.
So you are happy with cosmetic?
No, I'm merely positing to you that Sheikh Tariq is telling us this is our home. It should be our home. Make it your home. We're here to stay. We're here to have a positive impact and contribute to society and to act as a mirror to your fellow citizen and say, look, we believe in these, you believe in this. This is how we believe you should practice this thing. Why do this when they've done this to our creme de la creme? When they've done this to one of our leading speakers, figures, and look at the way they dealt with him. Yeah? You got literally a fraternity of people, journalists, policymakers, think tanks, authors, journalists, lobby groups. So we stand no chance if this is what they're doing to him. Better just going, yallah, just go back to Egypt, go to
I think you have less chance over there. And even here, when they are doing this to our leaders and public figures, you have 2 ways to deal with it. The first is to shy away and say, okay, I don't want to be involved in this. It's moral. Or to understand. It's we can call. It's just for you to understand what you have to do now. And unfortunately, our leadership. A sociologist once told me when he was dealing with Muslim leaders in the West, he said, I have a problem with this community. There is many leaders. There is no leadership. There is no vision.
It's that old idea, too many cowboys, not enough Indians.
Exactly. So that's the reality of it. The wake-up call here is really for us to understand that if they are doing this, in which way we have to be equipped to deal with it.
So who are the enemies? Who are the enemies at first?
First, yes, to be aware that you have within the political spectrum trends and people who are ready to destroy you. They don't want you. So it's not only far-right party.
And the left.
And the left as well, exactly. On one side, they just think that Islam is a threat and they don't want the perceived foreign religion. On the other side is because it's religious, it's against our progressive values. We know that. On the other side, so this is one. The second is you have people who are promoting a secular agenda, meaning we are ready to accept you as Muslims as long as Islam is not too much in your life to visit.
It's kept here.
Yeah,
it's in the four walls.
Exactly. The third is people understand that with our presence, we are bringing to the West the memory and the issues of the South. And they don't want this. Because you now are better equipped to understand what is happening in Africa, in Bangladesh, in the Middle East. And you're equipped now, you have. So what we are bringing, and they know this, so the enemy, in a way, is that they keep on saying integration is not working because they can see that integration is working. The problem for us is that we understand that we had the right integration and the wrong integration. Integrating to less education, more music, less principles, that's disintegration. Our integration should be to take everything which is good from the West, and we are more equipped. And to tell you the truth, what I have been thinking for a while is that the Islamic revival, because the challenges are so difficult in the West, is going to come from here because we know we have no choice. You and me, we are not struggling for power. We are struggling for survival. And it's different. So the fact that survival means how am I going to keep the principles? Not only this, to keep my principles and to share my principles with my fellow human beings. This is the objective of my presence here, is to spread, is not power. My power is to share the message.
And you think that survival in the West will be more impactful than power in the Muslim world?
There will be no power in the Muslim world. It's not going to happen today. That's over. Don't think about it. The problem that I have with the Islamic movement is they don't get it. They don't get now that, you know what I said when Hamas came to power in 2006, that you will get power without authority and authority without power. You are losing the case. So I was perceived as a betrayer. How come Tariq Ramadan, the grandson of Hassan al-Banna, is saying something which is, I said, look, there is a plan. The best way to work against the Islamic movement is to give them power, for them to show that with power they can't do anything. And this is what happened. It happened in Egypt afterward. It happened in Tunisia. So the point is that if you think that you are going to change a society today only by being the president of the country, not understanding the economic forces, the transnational corporation, and the way you have now to understand the new balance of power between China, Russia, the BRICS country, and the West. But we are not there. We are not there. We are still asking for implementation of the Sharia, and the Sharia starts with corporal punishment. That's the point. It's not going to work with that.
We're digressing, but I like to, because now as a student of politics, I know that during the Arab Spring you were heavily criticized because before we started filming, I said you wrote an article and you corrected me. It wasn't that political Islam is dead. You said that political Islam
going beyond political Islam.
Okay. Would you say then, this says we need to go back to wrap up the cases, but would a military coup be more impactful to implement Sharia than the plan that Morsi did or Al-Anushi did? Wouldn't that be more impactful?
What do you mean?
But so during the 60s and the 70s,
yes,
when the Arab socialist generals came to power, whether it's Gamal Abdel Nasser, whether it's the Assad, Saddam, Gaddafi, whoever it is, during that period, they came They won the hearts of the people, whatever rhetoric they said, whether it was Arab socialism, Pan-Arabism, wherever it was. They came, they won the hearts, became pretty brutal straight away. They stayed in power for a long while with the help of foreign powers and entities because they fulfilled their geopolitical needs. So what I'm asking you is, you said the way to fail the Islamic movement is by giving them power. So we can tell you that, look, with power, there's a lot of failures. So would it not be more effective to be a bit more harder?
Revolutionary.
Yeah. Like a military coup, wouldn't that be more impactful? That has a better track record?
No, because our, I'm not obsessed with power first. And I think that the starting point of the Islamic movement, the end of the 19th century with Al-Abrani and and at the beginning of the 20th century, was dealing with occupation, colonialism, intellectual, political, of course, economic and intellectual colonialism. And this is why this was the deep understanding of Al-Abrani. Say the point here is the intellectual colonization. I think that we are the Islamic movement, and even now is what is happening in Turkey. So many are thinking that Turkey is succeeding because Erdogan is in power. I say, I'm sorry. What are we talking about? Are you talking about more education, more principles, more principled approach, or only dealing more with China versus the West and Russia and being quiet when it comes to what is happening to our brothers in Syria, or even with dealing with Israel? So what do you mean? What do you mean with success as a Muslim activist? Do you mean power? That's not my point. It's much more about education, spiritual stability, and reforming the society. So I would prefer transnational movement of local initiatives of one country trying to get power, and you get what is happening. It's not happening, but we are not patient enough. We deal with power. We want power. We are obsessed with thinking that if you have power, it's over. If you think that Obama or Trump,
things are easier when you have power, though, Chef. Surely you're not going to, but things are easier.
It's not.
How the dawah of Islam in the early period is spread when we had power.
No, not only. No. In time of peace. The reality, after Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, it's 60 times more people entering to Islam than before.
But how long did the treaty last before they breached it? And then then the dawah exploded.
Exactly. But I mean by this that it's not when you have power or you are in a state of struggle. I think that we have to get a long-term vision of how are we going to deal with the West and what is the very essence of our presence. Don't you have that Allah has a plan by bringing us in the West, only to be obsessed with going back there? Is this the point? Or is there something that we have to do in the West? And I think that our understanding, and I come back to your first question when it comes to some of our brothers and sisters thinking that I was a reformist, and there is something which is non-negotiable. Our principles, al-aqidah, wal-ibadat, wal-muharramat, non-negotiable. So this is not going to be a discussion for me. But now I'm talking about the methodology, the means. The fact that, I was dealing with brothers and sisters thinking that you can use Facebook and you can use the social networks as a means for liberation. Say, in times of your Arabs, they say, are you just crazy? How come? The problem with some of our Muslim scholars is their deep knowledge in the text and their ignorance in some texts and all the social things, and they don't get this. Even when you talk to some economists and some, promoting Islamic economists, say, what are you talking about? Where are we heading with this, folks? We are going straight to the wall and it's not going to happen. So it's, with scholars and young, now we have, subhanAllah, we have young scholars equipped with a deep understanding of the context and deep understanding why Malik Shabazz was successful with his people. Because he was alim in the context. He knew the people. He said, I'm going back to the ghetto. because he knew. So we need people coming with this understanding, and women and brothers and sisters working together. But I think that there is a lack of vision, and our understanding is just not that while we are equipped to do so, and there is a lack of self-confidence, and there is a lack of trust. I think that many of our scholars don't trust their fellow brothers and sisters in Islam in the West. They think they are too much Westernized. And then and now we have a new trend, you can see it. It's the Sufi trend, and converts.
There's a new
Exactly, and converts to Islam who are bringing Muslims towards this. And they are saying things that are quite accurate in what they are pointing out, saying, look, there is a lack of spirituality in everything. And I would remember that my father, rahimahullah, met with at the Geneva airport with Sheikh al-Nadawi, rahimahullah, from India, Lucknow. And my father was crying, say, Subhanallah, is in the Islamic movement is lacking the spiritual input. And why I'm saying this to you, I think that this is exactly what happened to me on a personal level, saying that I was talking about God, I was talking about Allah, I was talking about spirituality, but something was lacking. And something was lacking because I was too much talking, not enough praying. So we have to come back to the essential.
Talking about the Muslim world, let's talk about the UAE. In the last, I'd say 10 years, 15 years, the reputation of the UAE as a regional player under Mohammed bin Zayed, the way it is widely reported that he was a key groomer of Mohammed bin Salman. I mean, like he was his ustad, showed him the ropes of how to deal with Washington and how to leverage oil and stuff like this. It's been proven now beyond any doubt that UAE policymakers, think tanks, are very much involved with many European governments in creating an Islamophobia industry and a witch hunt of activists, du'at, Muslim charities, under the facade of these are Islamist extremists. These are people who are playing entryism. They're going to enter your civil service and they're going to take over. And they're also spearheading witch hunts of individual Muslim public figures. In the case of the case of the UK, even though an overt UAE link wasn't proven, but we know that the case with our dear brothers, Dr. Anas al-Takriti, Muhammad Hasbar, and many others who had their bank accounts closed, who were listed on a list of terrorist organizations, where they were on the list with like ISIS and like genuine criminal organizations. And we see that the UAE has been very busy giving talks and lectures to Western audiences about the threat of Islamist extremism. How critical has the UAE involvement been in creating or worsening the atmosphere of Islamophobia?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that, we thought at the beginning that we had to deal with our governments in the West. And we understand that now. For me, it was quite different because I understood this when I was young, that Egypt was sending messages to the West telling them, the Muslim Brotherhood are extremists, and if you don't control them, they are going to destroy your society from within. So there was a game here and this is exactly what happened. You said about Obama supporting the coup and everything. So there was an understanding that in order to protect the West from Islamic movement, the Muslim majority country had to portray them as extremists and they were supporting the dictators. Now, what is happening now is new, and it's step-by-step strategy. The first was just after September the 11th, they say you have to be careful with the extremists, all this Al-Qaeda and all this. So, and it's not only in the West, it's in Africa, and you can see in Mali, in Niger, and it's in Yemen, it's international.
Pakistan, Afghanistan.
So we are going to put money to help you to identify, because what the West did is to accuse, so to speak, or to pretend to accuse Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries to be the supporters and the people who are financing.
Exactly.
So in order to show that so we are going to put money to help you for this. So this was one. Second, after what happened in the Arab Spring and the so-called Arab Spring in Egypt, is say, okay, now not only Al-Qaeda, not only the Islamic State, but the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood.
These are the conveyor belt.
Exactly. So this is now the second. So the fact is we are going to show you and to expose all the brothers, activists, and the people from this current. It's not only the Muslim Brotherhood, is wider than that. The third one, and this came for a while, and now there are new realities in the relationship, is Qatar, saying that Qatar is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, who are supporting that. So you have the links here now between this, and and they were putting money. Not only UAE, also Saudi Arabia was putting money, and Salman presenting himself as a modernist and modernizing his country.
2030 vision.
Exactly. So all this. So now what they were doing is to put money, and they were working in three fields. The first one is, once again, to put lots of money in the social media. So it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, and all. They are putting millions, and they are also working with some company. Now we understood, because this was not clear at the beginning, that the way some companies are working on this, and you remember Cambridge Analytica.
Yes, of course.
That was working for the Russian and with the Russian to support Trump and all this. So now, for example, they were working with Western companies to help them to spread this, to target the people and to expose leaders. And this was a strategy that started in 2012. And they were built on until in 2016. This was something that they were even working with some company. And one of these companies was Alp Services in Geneva based, and they were
the link in any of your cases.
Of course. And the meeting they had in August 2017, meaning 3 months before my case, was in Abu Dhabi with the leaders of UAE saying we want to take down Tariq Ramadan, because Tariq Ramadan is the good target. Why? He is the grandson of Hassan al-Banna, so the Muslim Brotherhood, and he worked in Qatar. He had a center there. Exactly. So this was something that, and we can bring him down. This was, so now we have all this is, this is proven. It was in the New Yorkers, and now Mediapart in France had the whole, and they published the whole thing. Even having one of the journalists against whom I feel the complaint, Yann Amel, taking money from them to write articles against me, to destroy and he's the first one who tweeted 5 days before the first complaint against me about the relationship with women. The same journalist who was in touch with the people who met in August in Abu Dhabi. So, and he took money from them. So we should understand now that, and there is a list of 1,400 leaders and scholars dealing with Muslim organization throughout Europe and the States. So this is something which is important. And more than that, is also to get a list of people coming from Saudi Arabia. And you can see that Saudi Arabia is quite quick to put some of the leaders in jail. And you know that Salman, Houdan, exactly. Exactly. So there is here a game that these countries, if you were to talk from a Western perspective, when they speak about Islamists are people who are dealing with the country through the Islamic legal framework, and they are running the country through this. If you were to be strict and consistent with your own definitions, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are Islamist countries. They are Islamists, these people. So, but these types of Islamists are okay because they deal with us from an economic viewpoint. They are giving us money. So the Islamists that are giving us money are okay. The Islamists that are resisting our power are extremists and they have to be destroyed.
I mean, I remember when Britain was voting on whether they should militarily intervene in Syria. We were saying that, yes, you have a problem with the head chopping of ISIS, but not the head chopping of Saudi.
Exactly. So exactly the point, because they have the money and they are allies. So for us, we need to get this. So now we have many fronts that we have to be aware of when we have enemies coming from within and from outside. So these people are putting lots of money to... it's not only to be able to deal with your reputation and to expose you. They are dealing with your phone. They are dealing with your mobile phone. They are dealing with your conversation.
Spy.
So it's monitoring everything, and they are dealing with the intelligence of the Western countries.
You know, from the many, many Muslim countries that we have, obviously there are a handful that are significantly more powerful and influential as regional players than others. So Turkey, Pakistan because of nuclear, Saudi, of course, Iran, the UAE, Qatar, and this country. Do we agree that these are key strategic countries? Some Egypt as well.
Yeah.
Forget Egypt. How can we ever forget Egypt? That was the first base, Egypt. So the UAE, Dubai is a place where Muslim youth love going to Dubai.
Yeah.
You know, social media, it's the good life. You know, superstars come to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, they become Muslim. You know, famous boxers go to Saudi and they become Muslim. Qatar spend £300 billion on the World Cup, and you know, this is great dawah. And you'll forget about what's happening in Libya and the mess in Syria and the interfering there and the khiyana there and the spying there. These are still great beacons of Islam. You know, so should we really be criticizing them? Because the supporters of UAE and the supporters of that way of thinking, that theology, that methodology, they would say we are preventing rebellious people, troublemakers, people who will cause discord in the societies that they are, because they're always protesting and bloody complaining about something or another. If it's not Palestine, Islamophobia. If it's not Islamophobia, then it's immigration. If it's not so the defenders of the UAE and governments like them will say we are merely providing information to our allies to prevent them from the same issues we had with these people in our country.
Yeah. People thinking like this have, there is one of two problems. The first, it might be that they have a very superficial understanding of politics and what is going on now by thinking like this. And no, they are not preventing. It's really a way to prevent any resistance to the dominant model now, which is westernization of the world. And what is happening now is Dubai is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, capitalism on steroids.
Yeah. It's worse than anything that you can imagine in a Muslim majority country. And not only, it's just really about facade and corruption. And so this is the second is that sometimes you have people thinking like this because it helps them, it's justify their own passivity and their own, like that we don't want we want to be, we don't have to be involved in this, and let us speak about spirituality and be Sufi and just promote education. So we don't speak about the essential disruptions, but we speak about how we are going to have our own education far from the world, which this is not Islam, this is Buddhism. Buddhism is just educate yourself far from the world because the world is suffers. We don't have this kind of thing. Is reform yourself in order to reform the space where you live. We don't have this kind of thing.
It's minding because I had a conversation with someone very recently and I posited your argument. We're on the same on this one. And he said, Ya akhi, he goes, when we're 6 foot under, Allah will not ask you whether you took to the streets for Palestine. Allah will not ask you about Islam. He will ask you about Salah. He will ask you about your ibadat. He'll ask you about your fasting. Ask about, did you give your zakah on time? And these kind of things. What is it with you movement type people? You have to perpetually make the religion about things where there is no textual evidence about Allah will account us. Who told you Allah will account us on what we did or didn't do for the Palestinians? Who told about we will be accounted for our salah, whether we did it properly, whether we did our wudu properly, and these kind of things. I've had these. We still have these arguments now. There are still mosque events till now that talk about these things. That brothers, Islamophobia and Palestine does not come first. Your salah, doing your wudu properly, and these kind of things, they matter. These are the things that Allah will question you about, and you'll be held accountable for sure, based on text.
So I think that, we have to bring them to the very essence of the revelation, the starting point of the reference, in order for you to understand the very meaning of prayer, of fasting. The Quran is starting with, look at the world, look at the poor people. So you have to look at the poor people. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُونَ in all this, what we have. لَا يَدُرُّ عَلَى أَطْعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. So they forget the poor. And this is exactly what we have in the very beginning of وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ. All this is talking about the poor people in Masakin. So the change in your vision in Islam is based on change your vision about the world, and you will see the signs of Allah, and change the way you look at the poor, because you have to do something for them. And then you had praying in order for you to keep close to God, in order to keep on helping the poor. And the second practical pillar of Islam. So the first is a shahada, but the first practical is praying. The second practical is zakah. Zakah is what? Is the right of the poor. It's within you. We are the only religion having it as the link, the vertical link to Allah is based on the right horizontal link to human beings and the poor. And you come and tell me this is not something that we have to do. In the day of judgment, if the poor is going to ask you, where was my money? You were here. It's only to pray. It's only to give zakat. But with the poor is the injustice. اتقي دعوة المظلوم ليس بين الله وبينها حجاب. There is no veil between the supplication of the unjust and God. اتقي, be scared of it. You have to be afraid of what could happen to you if an unjust man or unjust a victim of injustice is just asking Allah about what was done to him, and you were there and you didn't do anything. So I think that if you come to the very chronology of the revelation, you understand that it started, but look at the world, look at the world, look at the world, look at the poor, look at the people around you. Come back now to the relationship to God, and be clear and be strict with your principles in order to come back to the world and to change it for the better. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, والسلام, was praying the night to change the world. The day is not to sleep. And you are advocating something which is, I pray the night and I sleep the day. I'm sorry, this is not Islam. Wake up and do what you have to do.
Bringing the podcast to a close, you are not allowed to leave France. You actually said in one of your court cases, I'm not going to leave France. I'm going to fight for justice here and clear my name. What other bail conditions do you have?
So I have to go to the police station every 2 weeks now. I cannot leave the country, yes. And when I said I want to stay but this was 4 years ago, and I cannot even travel to, I cannot give lectures, I cannot meet with people, I cannot even go to see my mother in Switzerland. I have to ask for permission. So I understand that it's a long way for me, and it's a way for them to destroy me through this ongoing procedure. But Samro Jamil, Wallahu al-Musta'an, is I'm ready for it. I'm not going. They made me stronger than I was. So alhamdulillah, as to the spiritual, I'm not going. I'm going, inshallah. I'm asking Allah, the only thing I'm asking him is to die while I'm serving the message. And meaning serving the message is serving the very link to Allah, at Tawheed. I understood that beside, it's the only one on whom you have to rely is Him, and the people you love, and the people who my wife, my mother, my brothers and sisters, my kids, my children, all this, it's important. And to do this, it's a way to serve the message. And then to serve the message by doing what we have been talking about, which is promoting the right of the poor, resisting the powerful and dictators, and always to be on the side of the victims. So this is the way for me. Someone has to live, and I thank Allah to make me to have made me go through this experience, because this experience is something that helped me to understand the priorities and to understand who is essential in your life and who are your brothers and who are your sisters. And as I told you, the only thing that I want today is to serve the best way and until the end, inshallah.
Inshallah. This is a question I wanted to ask you, and I think it's important that I end with this, because it will be, I'm sure it was in the minds of many people. How have these cases, the ones that are still active and ongoing, including the ones that have been dropped and have been proven to be false, how has it impacted your family and specifically your marriage? How has all of the last 4.5 years impacted you and your family and your marriage specifically?
You know, I have been silent with my wife for years, because I was very much on my own, and she knew, and she experienced this with my own journey, spiritual journeys. Silence was something which was part of my personality. When I was in jail, we had time to discuss, and I understood the meaning of the love of God through her love. I understood, and I told her that I know today that Allah loves me through the fact that you are here, and you have been here with faithfulness, with understanding. She's quite demanding. She's not a woman. She is, submissive, and whatever you do, that's fine. No, she is a convert with her own personality. And all my children are the same. And what happened through this is to have the family come very close, very supportive, and my wife has been very supportive, asking questions, not accepting everything, while at the same time helping me to be a better human being and to be a better husband. And for this, I thank her, and I thank my children. And after Allah, and of course my mother, I was talking to her every day through the phone when I was in jail, which I wasn't able to do for more than 50 years before. Something that I think that, once again, subhanallah, is really through this that I was able to not only renew my intentions towards Allah, but my spiritual state, and also the way I was looking at my wife and my family, and the fact that today we are stronger than before. Now it's also a struggle that we are carrying on together and ready for it. And she gives me, and my children give me strength and trust and confidence. So once again, I would say to, I always said, when people are saying behind a great man there is a great woman, I say, no, you are wrong. I said it, 20 years ago. She's not behind, she is just near to him. And I think that she's even ahead of me. So I think that this also should be a teaching. If she is not as judgmental as you are, you might have to reconsider your judgment.
Were there moments in the last 4.5 years since this all kicked off, were there moments where you felt or you feared that maybe she wouldn't be so understanding or supportive or fair and balanced and just in understanding the scope of what's happening? Because your case is not just a small singular case, it's a big picture.
Yeah.
And if we're still talking about 5 years later, they are still within the ummah, in the community in the West, are not understanding the wider picture, the person who would be most directly affected from a public perception point of view would be your wife. So were there ever moments where you feared that, subhanAllah, maybe she will not understand, maybe the rumors and the accusations and stuff may consume her, may impact her negatively? And did you ever fear that?
To tell you the truth,
did you ever expect her not to understand?
It never happened. And what is surprising is that for her, when she was to come to see me, she was surprised it never happened to me. So how come you didn't even? For two reasons. The first one is just to have to remember that I was so sick and in such a physical situation. It was so difficult. I was taking more than 13 drugs at the same time when I was and I was trying.
Because you had to deteriorate quick, didn't it? Because they arrested you and kept you in remand 2nd of February, 4th of February.
Yes.
And you fell ill within.
I was ill before, but it deteriorated very quickly in less than 2 weeks. And even the doctor within jail said, "It's perfectly, yes, he should be raised. It's not compatible with detention." And then I was in this state, and when and for 1.5 months I didn't see my family. I was completely in isolation.
Not visitation.
So visitation, and then after this I was isolated in
solitary confinement.
Yes, exactly, solitary confinement for the whole time. But when she started, I was in a state where I was just dealing with my health, and at the same time we started talking, and very quickly she was supportive and she was expressing and showing signs that she is here, she will be here, and she was confident about the case, and on her side, our own children played a very important role by being supportive at the same time. So they were around her and around us. So it meant that at the end I failed in many things, but I think that we did quite good on education.
What would your advice be to public Muslim figures who may find themselves in the spiritual situation where you find yourself in situations which was reflective of a not so strong spiritual state, one which would impact their marriage and stuff like this? What advice would you give to Muslim public figures or Muslim men and husbands who find themselves in a situation where you may be traveling? We're not justifying, we are contextualizing.
Exactly. It's not, once again, what we are saying, and it's important, it's to explain, not to justify, because this is not what I was trying to do.
Of course, and wherever you're traveling, wherever it's work has consumed you, whatever the context is, you find you put yourself in a situation where you're compromised and you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
What would your advice be, considering that you experienced this for nearly 5 years and are still ongoing? What would your advice be to those who find themselves in these situations, how to handle it better with their wife if it comes out in the open, when it comes out in the open?
I think that the first thing which, when I was reflecting on this, is to be sincere with yourself, is to look at the situation the way it is. Don't lie to yourself. So look at your own vulnerability. I kept on, repeating for years, I'm facing my own contradictions. I'm not an angel. I knew that I was, but that's not the same. Here, it's really to be sincere, say, okay, I have to take action and to do something. So first is, the first step to heal is really this awareness that there is something wrong. It's the awareness, is to be self-conscious. And I would say that The first is, as you have this intention to serve Allah, what He's expecting from you is to be sincere with your own self. And when you have this, there is one way which is important, is if this could happen with your with your wife, it's to have a discussion and to be able to have this discussion. If it's not possible for one or another reason, is to be surrounded by 1, 2, or 3 people with whom you can talk. But we have to avoid this, superficial modesty that we have. I'm not going to talk about this. At one point, brotherhood means I need to talk about my own, weaknesses. I need someone who can understand, which I didn't have. And I think that there is, this is why it's important. The people who are the brothers and sisters with whom you are should be able at one point to help you to look at yourself, and with whom you have to discuss. This is the true meaning of brotherhood. I have many brothers and sisters. I'm not sure I know the meaning of brotherhood, the real meaning of brotherhood, meaning what we have in the Quran. And understanding that, once again, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ, which is the good deeds are removing the bad deeds. It's not the other way around. So it's not because this is happening that this is something which is happening with me also, that ذَلِكَ ذِكْرَى لِلذَّاكِرِينَ. You have to remember, it's to remind you of the essential, that I had some brothers and sisters thinking that السيئات are erasing the hazard. No, it's the other way around. And it's important for you to have people around you who are helping you to, rely on the hasanat. And now we have to deal with the sayyi'at and something which is happening with you. But it has to do with the context. Don't be on your own, and don't go too fast. Don't try to serve the others when you are not able to serve yourself. And don't give when you feel you are not able to receive.
You said you're not allowed to give lectures, public engagements. You're now retired. You're not on, and you took an absence of leave, and then you retired. When did you retire from being in Oxford?
In 2021.
Before all of this happened, you were giving lectures across the world, universities, talks, events. A consistent theme throughout the last couple of years and throughout your case, that they're trying to muzzle me. They're trying to silence me. Have they succeeded?
In a way, yes. As to the public engagements, and Muslims help them to do so, to tell you the truth. Because this, once again, the cancel culture and the Muslims being even scared of pronouncing my name and cutting all the links. Some of the Muslims in the Muslim movement disappeared, and some I was not expecting, having a call from Talal Assad. Talal Assad, who has nothing to do with the Islamic movement, the son of Muhammad Assad, the anthropologist calling and supporting. Esposito, who is not a Muslim, supporting, and so many people who are not Muslims, and Muslims who are not really involved. One of, Khalid Abul Fadl, who, he is very courageous, but he's not from the Islamic movement. He was the one who stood with my daughter, saying, I'm not going to let this happen. And some were with me, and yes, in Islam, go and speak, and you are so courageous, say the truth. They were behind me. And when you turn your face, there is nobody. And say, okay, that's fine. They succeeded by our own weaknesses, because they are strong out of our weaknesses. And this is what is happening now. So you are here, and I have to thank you to be here, because this is, I'm grateful that you give me a platform where I can explain this to Muslims. And it's important. It's important because it didn't happen for the last 5 years. It was, and then at the same time, what I took out of this, it was good for me, because it helped me to take time and to think about the what I want to say and how I want to live my life. But it's so I'm teaching for people around in French, less in English, doing few things, lectures from through Zoom and things like this. But this is exactly what they wanted. And I'm surprised that Muslims, and not so surprised at the same time, pretend not to know what they wanted and to do exactly what they wanted. As
you have you have a significantly sizable YouTube channel. I think it's over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. You have a significant following in Twitter. So is social media something that you're going to have to adapt to?
I have been using it, but you know what is shadow banning? This is what they are doing with me. They were doing it before 2017. So in Facebook, there are, I don't know, I think more than 2 million. But when I put something, they make it not reaching.
Yeah, so it doesn't come up in YouTube.
So. But I'm. Anyway, at the end of the day, I'm not now thinking about number and I'm just trying to, it's the substance which is important. I just want to be faithful and to be sincere on what I'm trying to do and convey the right message. So, and the right message is part of what we have been talking about right now, but also on the spiritual side, on the social side, on the political side, on the international side. This is what I'm trying to do. And I even now, you know, for 30 years, more than that, 35 years, I have been having the idea of writing a novel. So just before it happened, I wrote it, and then this happened. And which is interesting is that the title was "To Die Twice." To die twice. So I think it's just a new birth, and then I'm trying just to deal with this, and I'm now writing also poetry. So I'm in that field where creativity is part of the process, where healing is important, and the center of for education and research that is called Shifa, which is the remedy to everything. Yeah. It's the question.
We need to be mindful because your new label might be Born Again Muslim.
Oh, well, yes, why not?
That sounds like Sheikh Tariq. It was an absolute pleasure having you on. May Allah accept it from you. May Allah make it easy for you, your family, and the affairs of all the ummah.
Amen.
Brothers and sisters and friends, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this extensive conversation with Professor Tariq Ramadan. Lots to unpick. For those of you who don't know much about his case and he's somewhat new to this audience, you can go to the 5 pillars, just search Tariq Ramadan, and all our editorial coverage of his cases since 2017-18 will be there. Brothers and sisters, you can find this show. It's the first episode of season 3, so I know there'll be new people coming onto our platforms. You can find us on all the major audio platforms, and if you're tuning in via YouTube, click subscribe on the 5 pillars YouTube channel. Like the video, leave a comment. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.